Imagine standing calm amidst life's most relentless storms, unshaken and resilient, like a hero straight out of your favorite movie. What if ancient secrets, hidden in the powerful teachings of Stoicism, could unlock your true potential, turning setbacks into epic comebacks? In this gripping exploration, you'll discover timeless strategies, once used by legendary figures, from Roman emperors to modern-day icons, to conquer fear, master their emotions, and achieve unbreakable inner peace. You'll be captivated as each principle unfolds, guiding you step by step toward reclaiming control over your life's narrative. Stick around until the end. The final revelation might just change your life forever. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now, ring the bell icon, and join our growing community of truth seekers. Your epic journey toward emotional invincibility starts here. Life, as many philosophers and thoughtful individuals have observed, can often feel like sailing across tumultuous seas. Storms arise without warning, and people find themselves struggling to maintain their composure in the face of harsh winds, sudden changes in circumstance, and the relentless pounding of seemingly endless waves. In the midst of these challenges, the notion of finding calm, even when external circumstances are far beyond one's direct control, may appear to be a lofty or unrealistic aspiration. Yet the teachings of Stoicism, particularly as presented by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, offer a practical roadmap for cultivating an inner harbor of peace. The text you are about to explore reflects an intention to guide you through key principles rooted in Stoicism, revealing how to develop a form of emotional invincibility that stands firm despite the uncontrollable storms of life. When we discuss emotional invincibility, we are not implying a life devoid of feeling or a retreat into cold indifference. Instead, Stoic emotional invincibility is about aligning your perspective with what truly lies within your sphere of control, namely your judgments, decisions, and reasoned responses. Epictetus famously drew the distinction between what is up to us and what is not up to us. If you can cultivate the habit of focusing attention and energy solely on what you can meaningfully influence, you create an oasis of serenity that no external upheaval can penetrate. In many ways, Stoicism calls us to recognize that suffering is often rooted not in events themselves, but in how we interpret them. Yet knowing that control begins in the mind is only half the battle. The second half is learning to deepen our personal virtues and moral character. Stoics point out that it is virtue and virtue alone that assures a life of genuine fulfillment. Material or fleeting desires, such as pursuing fame, wealth, or constant external validation, do not yield lasting happiness. Instead, they create a cycle of dependency on circumstances and the unpredictable decisions of others. This script, then, stands as both an invitation and a challenge to become acquainted with the core Stoic principles and, more importantly, to apply them. Throughout these pages, we will explore the threads of Epictetus's philosophical counsel, identifying what you can change, aligning yourself with nature's unfolding, both outer and inner, practicing acceptance, and training your mind to reframe obstacles as paths for growth. The essence of Stoic thinking is that no adversity is insurmountable. Every hardship is a catalyst that can spur us to refine our character and further our understanding of life's intricacies. The entire premise hinges on the proposition that we have complete freedom in how we perceive and react to events around us. By reframing these events through a lens of rational thought and self-awareness, we learn to accept that some realities lie outside our power, but our response to those realities is ours alone. This new outlook invites us to live more purposefully and to acknowledge that the goal of Stoic training is not passivity but profound engagement with the world, albeit engagement informed by introspection, moral fortitude, and compassion. The 10 key Stoic principles presented here will serve as a practical guide for nurturing unwavering tranquility. They also form a basis for forging deeper self-acknowledge and cultivating a sense of unity with the vast and often mysterious workings of fate. Before delving into the 10 specific principles, it is valuable to situate this entire discourse in the broader philosophical framework that Stoicism provides. From Zeno of Citium, who founded the Stoic school, to Cleanthes, Chrysippus, and the later Roman Stoics, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca among them, one finds a consistent core teaching: we suffer more from our judgments about events than from the events themselves. This conviction is what enables Stoics to navigate seemingly insurmountable odds with a bearing that is calm, deliberate, and unexpectedly optimistic. The modern world is brimming with distractions and demands, and one might assume that Stoic teachings, developed in ancient Greece and Rome, have lost their relevance. Yet ironically, the frantic pace of modern living only underscores how timely and necessary these principles truly are. The crux of Stoic practice lies in thoroughly assimilating the difference between what we can control, namely our own thoughts, judgments, and actions, and what lies beyond our control, such as other people's choices, economic downturns, or shifts in societal norms. Epictetus, whose words resonate throughout this text, is known for his stark yet empowering reminder: some things are in our power and some are not. That simple delineation can become a beacon guiding how we prioritize our time and energy. When we focus on controlling the controllables, our beliefs, mindsets, and intentional behaviors, we discover an entirely new form of personal power, one no external power can deny or diminish. The broader tapestry of Stoicism often ties these teachings to the concept of virtue as the only true good, although some might interpret virtue through narrow lenses, perhaps associating it with religious or moral dogmas. Stoicism defines virtue in a remarkably practical way, living in agreement with nature by aligning our rational faculties, moral sense, and daily actions. This includes wisdom, courage, justice, and self. By emphasizing personal responsibility for one's moral character, Stoics guide us away from a life consumed by ephemeral cravings. In the Stoic model, virtue is the lifeblood of a person who aims to live untroubled by the noise of the world and unwavering in principle when confronted with temptation or adversity. Consider the guidance of Marcus Aurelius, who, despite being emperor of Rome, frequently reminded himself that he controlled little outside his own thoughts and actions. His meditations reveal a man grappling with power, personal sorrow, and historical upheavals, yet refusing to cede his inner fortress to despair or arrogance. "Accept the things to which fate binds you," he advised, reminding us all that the chain of cosmic events will not always favor our preferences, but neither our happiness nor our sense of worth must hinge on the fickle nature of the world. Thus, as we approach the first principle, firm purposes, we anchor ourselves in the notion that the Stoic path leads not to apathy, but to wise engagement. Each principle emerges from the foundation of Epictetus's crucial distinction: you can influence your mind and your responses, but you cannot force the world to conform to your desires. Within that limitation, ironically, lies your greatest strength. Acknowledging the boundary between self and environment can unleash a formidable sense of freedom. For many, this is not only a philosophical revelation, but a deeply transformative personal experience. Principle 1 in this journey is something Epictetus and other Stoics implicitly emphasize time and time again: the necessity of having a clear, deeply rooted sense of purpose. Epictetus claimed, "Difficulties show a person's character," indicating that the real crucible of virtue emerges in the face of trials. Like a blacksmith's forge, hardships can refine and strengthen the moral metal of our being. He even asserted that a skilled pilot only gains recognition because they have navigated through storms, not because they have gracefully coasted on calm seas. In a metaphorical sense, your own purpose must likewise be tested to become unshakable. In practice, a firm purpose begins with identifying what matters most to you, not merely on the surface level, such as chasing a desired job title or a social media-based sense of prestige, but in the deeper, moral and existential sense. It often involves pinpointing the values that guide your ethical choices, whether that is honesty, compassion, courage, diligence, or devotion to family and community. When you carry these priorities within, like an unquenchable flame, the chaos of the world diminishes in significance. A stable purpose acts as a mental anchor, ensuring that even if the wind howls and the waves roar, your core direction remains intact. Seneca contributed a parallel perspective when he wrote, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." The significance of this observation is timeless. Without purposeful aims, any distraction or difficulty can knock you off course. Conversely, if you have a precise sense of your port, even the most daunting trials become navigable. Hence, Stoics would argue that it's not the removal of obstacles that guarantees a good life, but rather the unwavering commitment to one's purpose that transforms obstacles into stepping stones. Your intention and willpower shape how you perceive every twist or turn in your journey, transmuting potential disruptions into catalysts for self-growth. Importantly, it is through repeated, diligent efforts that purpose becomes etched into your daily life. One way to embed your purpose is to reflect each morning on what you aim to accomplish, both practically and morally, and to reflect each evening on how well you remained aligned to that vision. Some keep a journal to track decisions that deviated from their guiding ideals, not for self-condemnation, but for constructive self-awareness. Over time, these small but persistent introspective practices infuse your actions with a consistent direction. In doing so, Stoicism becomes not just a set of historical teachings, but a lived experience. Additionally, adversity tests and refines your purpose. Without hardships, it can be difficult to measure the depth of your commitment. When Epictetus mentions that skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms, he highlights the idea that it is precisely in challenging situations, loss of status, financial troubles, interpersonal conflicts, unexpected health issues, where one's firm sense of direction plays the most transformative role. Stepping away from immediate panic, you can ask, is my purpose worthy enough to endure this ordeal? If the answer is yes, the difficulty becomes more tolerable because you see it as part of your broader quest to embody virtue and resilience. This underscores the Stoic idea that adversity can in fact be beneficial if approached as an opportunity to fortify your soul. Principle 2 addresses a fundamental question of autonomy and self-ownership. Would you hand over your body to a stranger? Epictetus and subsequent Stoics use a rhetorical device here. They observe that most people would never permit a random person on the street to control their physical movements or bodily health, yet the same individuals might habitually allow strangers or fleeting circumstances to seize control of their mind. We yield to provocation. We become slaves to fleeting praise or stung by insults. We let the moods of others shape our inner calm. In Stoic thinking, such behavior is akin to surrendering the keys to your home, allowing strangers to wander in and do as they please. At its heart, this question asks us to scrutinize the way we manage our mental sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius famously asserted that you have power over your mind, not outside events. This is a clarion call to guard the gates of your thoughts as carefully as you would guard your physical sanctity. We rarely contemplate the structure of our mental life, but it is there that true freedom or enslavement occurs. To illustrate, imagine you are at work and a colleague criticizes you in a brusque manner. A typical response might be to lash out, harbor resentment, or replay the conversation for hours with simmering anger. In so doing, you have effectively handed a portion of your peace to this person. Recognizing that you choose your emotional response is the first liberating step in regaining autonomy. Epictetus's viewpoint reminds us that it is not the external insult that causes our distress, but the meaning we attach to it. This realization shifts the focus from controlling the external world, which is largely futile, to mastering our own perceptions. By refusing to internalize others' destructive opinions or negativity, we protect our stable center. Yet Stoic teachings do not end with a mere mental technique. They also encourage self-discipline and consistent practice. The philosopher suggests small daily commitments, be it a pledge to speak kindly to others regardless of their tone, or a vow to read a few pages of philosophical reflection instead of doom-scrolling through social media. These micro-practices grow your confidence and underscore your ability to choose serenity over agitation. Consider also the classic example of a craftsman or artist. A skilled potter devotes each day to refining technique and artistry. Critics may find faults, but the potter's unwavering focus on mastery is not derailed by biting comments. This is not to say that the potter ignores valuable feedback, but any feedback is processed through a balanced, discerning mind, rather than an ego bruised by negativity. The difference is that the potter remains in command of the creative process and mood. This metaphor extends to our daily tasks. From cooking a meal to finishing a work project, the question becomes whether we allow external judgments to infiltrate our mental domain, or whether we build the mental shield that acknowledges feedback while retaining self-possession. Ultimately, this principle urges us to remember that emotional freedom is a choice, one that can be nurtured through vigilance and practice. When you realize how often you unconsciously permit others to shape your inner climate, you begin to see the unguarded doorways to your peace. And when you close those doorways, you experience a liberation that Stoics describe as being master of yourself. That is where real power and unshakable contentment lie. Principle 3 tackles one of life's most common irritants, the experience of someone speaking ill of you. Most of us at some point struggle with rumors, slander, or the frustration of feeling misjudged. Yet Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca each offer wise counsel, emphasizing that while we have no power to stop someone else's negative commentary, we retain the absolute power to determine our emotional reception to it. Marcus Aurelius succinctly stated, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is both simple and deeply profound, reminding us that when we do not grant negativity a foothold in our psyche, it loses its sting. Stoics approach slander with a blend of self-awareness and humility. First, self-awareness means having a clear sense of who you are, including your principles, intentions, and genuine flaws. If the criticism is baseless, recognizing that it is rooted in misunderstanding or malice can help you let it pass without unleashing a torrent of distress. On the other hand, if the negative words highlight a real shortcoming, a Stoic sees an opportunity to learn and improve. It is precisely this nuance, knowing yourself well enough to discern baseless attacks from legitimate critiques, that allows Stoics to remain calm and unruffled. Seneca advises that no man is free who is not master of himself, so your freedom hinges on whether you allow thoughtless remarks to dictate your mood or sense of worth. Consider this everyday scenario. A colleague spreads a rumor that you are somehow incompetent. Such a statement can spark anger or shame if you interpret it to mean that your career or reputation is at risk. However, the Stoic response would be to pause, to reflect. Is there any truth in this criticism? If yes, perhaps the rumor is an indication of an area needing improvement. If no, then the rumor is more a reflection of the colleague's pettiness than of your worth. In either case, you remain the self-aware observer who chooses a response guided by rational judgment, not impulsive defensiveness or wounded pride. Over time, this calm, measured approach can diffuse negativity, as others see you will not be easily provoked by slander. Furthermore, Stoicism extends this lesson beyond just interpersonal conflicts. Epictetus argued that in any sphere, be it public speaking, online social networks, or close relationships, people will voice opinions. You cannot silence them, nor should you necessarily wish to. Instead, you cultivate an inner fortress of clarity regarding your motives and principles. This fortress includes patience and gentleness, virtues that help sustain a good relationship, even with someone who misunderstands you. This does not imply that you must remain passive if genuine harm is being done, but it emphasizes that your first stance is an inner composure. Once your emotional reactivity is tempered, you are free to choose a constructive external action, whether that be clarifying the misunderstanding, disengaging, or reasserting boundaries. Ultimately, the hallmark of a free individual is the ability to endure negative words without internalizing their poison. Marcus Aurelius echoes this perspective when he says, "Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears." This is not a denial of reality, but an assertion that our mental processes define how events affect us. Cultivating that perspective transforms each disagreement or insult into an opportunity for self-mastery. By sharing your own stories, your victories, and lessons learned in handling criticism, you can not only fortify your own Stoic practice, but also encourage others to remain steadfast in the face of unkind words. Principle 4 deepens the preceding discussion by turning the focus specifically toward insult and offense. Epictetus famously stated that it is not external events themselves that upset us, but rather our interpretations of those events. This pronouncement is perhaps the most cited line encapsulating Stoic thought. When an offense occurs, a rude remark, a social slight, a pointed insult, Stoics suggest we see it as an event that can be cognitively reframed. To illustrate, imagine an artist publicly ridiculed by a critic. The insult might initially stir shame or anger. However, by pausing and reflecting on Epictetus's teaching, the artist can shift from emotional reaction to rational analysis. I'm experiencing anger because I interpret these words as diminishing my self-worth. But do these words truly hold that power? Seneca offers a complementary perspective. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. In the moment of being offended, we might unleash mental catastrophizing, imagining that others are laughing behind our back, or that our entire reputation is forever sullied. In truth, the insult may be fleeting and soon forgotten by most. The Stoic discipline, then, lies in checking these mental spirals and asking, is my sense of injury outpacing the actual harm done? Often we discover that our magnified perception of an insult is the true source of our suffering. Yet this principle does not advocate pretending that insults never wound, or that such experiences are trivial. Rather, the goal is to harness reason to navigate the emotional turmoil. If the insult stems from a misunderstanding, a Stoic might calmly clarify the error or respond with humility and kindness, thereby turning a hostile encounter into a moment of potential connection or growth. If the insult is malicious, a Stoic might choose silence or a dignified response that preserves self-respect without fueling the flames. Marcus Aurelius eloquently reflected this approach, saying, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very offense can become a catalyst for practicing emotional composure and moral virtue. Another layer to Epictetus's counsel is the idea that an insult often reveals more about the insulter than the insulted. If someone consistently hurls offensive remarks, It reflects their inner turmoil or worldview. Understanding this can foster empathy rather than anger. You might see the offender as someone grappling with their frustrations or insecurities, and therefore less deserving of your resentment than of your pity or composed indifference. Maintaining such a perspective spares you from losing peace over another's negativity. On a practical note, daily life provides many opportunities to apply this principle. From reading disparaging comments online to overhearing someone belittling your work at an office gathering, you have repeated chances to practice reframing. Initially, the process might be challenging. Humans are by nature sensitive to social cues and criticisms, but with intention and consistent effort, you can gradually train yourself to pause before reacting, letting the spark of an offense fizzle out before it ignites a full emotional blaze. Each small victory in this regard builds self-trust, proving to your mind that you hold the reins of your reactions. In a deeper sense, the Stoic way of handling insults fosters the stable serenity Epictetus extols. It teaches that your worth does not hinge on external validation or condemnation. You still care about doing good work, upholding moral conduct, and contributing positively to the world. However, you develop a stronger immunity to the passing jabs, snubs, and criticisms that inevitably arise in any social sphere. Through consistent practice of reframing, you realize you are no longer defined by random words, but by the clarity and steadfastness of your own character. With these first four principles, 1. Firm purposes, 2. Autonomy over one's mind, 3. Handling ill speech and offense, we see a tapestry forming. Each principle builds upon the Stoic conviction that external events or people cannot force us to feel or react in a certain way unless we grant them the power to do so. Together, these insights encourage the cultivation of a steady inner compass, one that remains aligned to reason and virtue despite the ever-shifting tides of fortune. This path demands both self-awareness and a willingness to constantly refine our mental habits. It is also worth noting that these lessons are not meant to create emotional robots. Stoicism, at its core, seeks to fortify your ability to love deeply, engage wholeheartedly, and appreciate life fully, yet without slipping into destructive emotional extremes. The equanimity that Stoics treasure is not numbness, but clarity in the face of life's trials. By refusing to be tossed about by every passing insult or by the ephemeral opinions of others, you reclaim a precious resource, mental space to focus on the good and to act with measured wisdom. As we prepare to move into Part 2, let us reaffirm the importance of these foundational ideas. First, realize that difficulties truly do reveal character, as Epictetus insists. Second, never relinquish your mental sovereignty to strangers or fleeting circumstances. Third, remain steadfast when facing negative talk, separating genuine critique from irrelevant chatter, and responding only after thoughtful reflection. Lastly, remember that insults do not define you. What defines you is your capacity to maintain composure and moral resolve. In Part 2, we will explore how Stoicism addresses deeper emotional challenges, fear and dishonor, anticipating obstacles, the concept that no one can truly hurt you unless you allow it, and practical methods for curbing impulsive reactions. These lessons continue the journey of forging emotional invincibility. While the path is seldom easy, the reward is profound. An inner sphere that remains calm under any storm. Take a moment to reflect on how these first four principles might already apply to your own life. Areas where you might cultivate acceptance, or moments where you might practice pausing before letting external negativity overtake you. That reflection will set a solid foundation as we continue. Diving further into Stoic wisdom, we arrive at Principle 5, which deals with fear and dishonor, two forces that can profoundly shape human behavior if left unchecked. Fear, in particular, can be paralyzing. It can drive people to take actions that contradict their better judgment or cause them to shrink back from opportunities for personal or moral growth. Dishonor, meanwhile, relates to the social dimension. We fear losing status, being humiliated, or not living up to the expectations of others, including friends, family, or society at large. Epictetus cuts through these dilemmas with a stark reminder that the mind is the seat of all meaning. If you regard certain events or outcomes as catastrophic, they will indeed feel devastating. But if you interpret them with the lens of reason and acceptance, the emotional sting lessens, and your capacity to act wisely increases. At times, fear and dishonor intersect. An individual might compromise on personal values or authenticity to avoid social shame. Social media exemplifies this dynamic. People often chase likes and public adoration, or they remain silent on important issues to evade potential backlash. Stoic philosophy addresses this phenomenon by asking us to reflect on what truly sustains our sense of self-worth. Is it social approval, which is fleeting and beyond our complete control? Or is it a well-grounded conscience which stands on the bedrock of rational reflection and moral principles? Seneca reminds us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Similarly, if we crave endless positive regard, we become enslaved by others' opinions, leaving ourselves vulnerable to fear and shame whenever we fail to conform. A potent strategy is the practice of premeditation of evils, a technique in which you calmly envision possible misfortunes, such as public embarrassment, a failed project, or a social snub, and mentally rehearse how you might remain centered if those events were to come to pass. The goal is not to wallow in negativity, but to train the mind to adapt gracefully rather than panic. This practice fosters resilience and dulls the edge of shock when difficulties actually occur. In the process, you begin to realize that many events you once feared are either unlikely or not as dire as your imagination portrays. Freed from chronic dread, you can act with a quiet confidence that draws people's respect, far more reliably than pandering to every outside demand. Moreover, Stoics advise that while seeking honorable behavior is natural, being overly preoccupied with reputation can become a trap. Epictetus states that our internal moral compass should guide us above all else. He also notes that shame can have a positive dimension if it aligns with moral correction. For instance, if you catch yourself lying to avoid conflict, feeling a sense of healthy shame can prompt a commitment to truthfulness. However, feeling ashamed simply because someone disapproves of your honest stance is unproductive. You can glean the difference by staying attentive to your own moral reasoning. In essence, fear and dishonor are illusions unless you hand them the reins of your mind. By recognizing the power you have to interpret challenges, you dismantle their hold. The reward is an unshakable tranquility that does not fluctuate with the tides of external approval or condemnation. Life, by its nature, involves a dance of uncertainty. Stoicism teaches us to embrace that dance with courage, ensuring that fear no longer dictates our steps. Principle 6 underscores the importance of proactively envisioning and preparing for obstacles, an idea often associated with the Latin phrase premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. While it might sound pessimistic to dwell on potential misfortunes, the Stoics advocate for this mental exercise to cultivate resilience and adaptability. Seneca's words resonate here. If you are surprised at how many things you lack, remember how many things you have. That reflection emerges from a place of gratitude and awareness, reminding us that anticipating difficulties does not cancel out the many blessings we already possess. Rather, it equips us to handle life's curveballs with greater poise. Anticipating obstacles does not mean actively wishing for negativity. Instead, it arms us against panic and hasty decisions when adversity arrives. Take the example of an entrepreneur launching a new business. Before fully committing, they consider possible pitfalls, sudden financial shortfalls, market shifts, or even pandemic-like disruptions. Mentally rehearsing how they might address these issues, such as securing extra funding or pivoting strategies, fosters calm readiness. Then, if such an obstacle materializes, they are not blindsided. This approach closely mirrors Epictetus's maxim, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. By acknowledging that challenges will come, you strengthen the mental muscles required to tackle them. Furthermore, anticipating obstacles can shift one's relationship with adversity. Rather than viewing hardships as unwelcome interruptions, you begin to see them as a normal part of the journey, even a crucible for honing deeper wisdom. This does not imply seeking suffering. Instead, it means refusing to be derailed by life's unpredictability. Marcus Aurelius encapsulates this when he says, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing," implying that life requires an alert readiness to engage. In dancing, you might flow gracefully when conditions are ideal, but wrestling demands constant adaptation to an opponent who resists your every move. Emotionally, this principle stabilizes us by reducing anxiety tied to the unknown. Fear often festers in uncertainty. What if I lose my job? What if I fail in front of others? But by acknowledging that job loss or failure could happen, you dismantle its element of surprise. From this vantage point of acceptance, you can rationally plan steps to mitigate risk or to rebound quickly if misfortune strikes. You transform the paralyzing question, "What if?" into a constructive one. If it happens, how will I respond? Another facet of anticipating obstacles is that it aligns seamlessly with the Stoic emphasis on self-control. You cannot govern external forces, be it the economy, others' choices, or random acts of nature, but you can govern how you prepare for them and how you respond in the aftermath. Epictetus insists that within this domain of preparation and response lies our true power. You might say, "I accept that storms are part of the forecast. I will therefore fortify my ship, train my crew, and chart a course with an awareness of potential hazards." That shift in attitude fosters a proactive mindset rather than a passive or fatalistic one. Lastly, practicing the principle of anticipating obstacles encourages humility. It acknowledges that life's complexities exceed your capacity for total control. In doing so, you learn to approach each undertaking with a balanced outlook, hopeful for the best, but prepared for the worst. In time, this stoic poise becomes second nature, seeping into how you deal with finances, relationships, health, or creative endeavors. By actively anticipating potential obstacles, you preempt the emotional turmoil that can arise from shock or unpreparedness. This mental preparation stands as a keystone in your journey towards stoic resilience, ensuring that no matter how the winds of fortune blow, you remain the steady captain of your inner domain. Principle 7 asserts a notion central to Epictetus's framework. No one can truly hurt you unless you allow them to do so. This concept dovetails with the Stoic understanding that our judgments and interpretations form the ultimate gatekeeper of our emotional well-being. Don't consent to be hurt, and you won't be hurt, Epictetus maintains, emphasizing that external harms are incapable of reaching our core unless we open the door. To be sure, the concept can be misunderstood. It does not deny the physical or psychological harm that can be inflicted by malicious individuals or unfortunate circumstances. Rather, it focuses on the deeper layer of emotional and existential injury, our sense of self-worth, peace, and moral orientation. If, for example, someone betrays you, You may feel intense sorrow and disappointment. Stoics do not dismiss these emotions, but suggest that how long you dwell in torment, and whether this event undermines your entire identity, remains within your power. Through self-reflection, you can glean lessons from betrayal about human nature, boundaries, or the importance of prudence, without succumbing to bitterness that poisons your future interactions. Furthermore, the statement, "no one can hurt you unless you let them," counters a victim mentality. If you adopt the belief that your emotional life is shaped by the whims of others, you relinquish personal agency. Stoicism asserts the opposite, that you can decide in each instance whether an external blow will define or derail you. Marcus Aurelius echoes this when he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In a culture that often blurs the lines between external events and emotional damage, such a stance can feel radically liberating. Let's consider a practical example. Assume a close friend harshly criticizes your life choices, calling them naive and doomed to fail. You might initially feel hurt, but if you scrutinize the situation through a Stoic lens, you might see that your friend is projecting their own fears. Recognizing this possibility, you could respond calmly, acknowledging that your friend has a right to an opinion while holding firm to your own sense of purpose. By not consenting to be hurt, you effectively shield your self-confidence from being dismantled. Over time, practicing this skill fosters emotional fortitude, ensuring you do not spend sleepless nights over criticisms that do not align with your own reasoned self-appraisal. Importantly, Stoic teachings do not advise ignoring genuine threats to your safety or well-being. If someone's actions threaten your physical health or that of your loved ones, responding with necessary protective measures is crucial. But even in such scenarios, the key lies in addressing the threat with a level-headed approach rather than a frenzy of panic. Freedom, as Epictetus stressed, is not procured by a full enjoyment of what is desired, but by controlling the desire. The principle here is that your internal world remains inviolate so long as you do not surrender it. To apply this principle consistently, cultivate mindfulness of your internal reactions. The moment you sense anger, fear, or resentment sparking, pause to question, "Am I letting this external situation define me?" This question recenters your awareness on the fact that your emotional state remains your choice. Over time, you become less reactive, more deliberate, and better equipped to handle both minor slights and major affronts with the composure Stoicism prizes. Epictetus would regard this composure as a hallmark of true freedom, for no matter how destructive someone else's intentions may be, they cannot enslave your spirit. Principle 8 in Epictetus's Stoic canon teaches the strategic suppression or restraint of impulsive actions, an indispensable skill in maintaining self-mastery. When Epictetus declares that no man is free who is not master of himself, he underscores the reality that a person governed by their impulses, whims, or fleeting emotional states is in a perpetual state of inner bondage. Conversely, an individual who pauses, reflects, and then chooses a response guided by reason exemplifies the freedom and resilience that Stoics aspire to cultivate. Picture a situation at work. Your boss unexpectedly lashes out at you in a team meeting, attributing blame for a project's delay. The natural impulse could be to retaliate verbally or sink into an inner fury. Stoicism invites a different approach. Take a mental step back. Instead of reacting from raw emotion, ask, "Is this outburst wholly deserved? If not, is there a measured way to clarify the misunderstanding?" The shift from reflexive emotional response to calm, measured action can not only spare you from escalating the conflict, but also preserve your dignity and demonstrate maturity. Over time, others come to respect this poise, recognizing it as a sign of genuine strength. Practically speaking, restraining impulsive actions begins with awareness of the triggers that set off your reactions. It might be certain topics, a tone of voice, or a person who habitually irritates you. By identifying these triggers, you prepare to respond calmly rather than being blindsided. Seneca speaks to this when he insists that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. If you delay responding by a mere few seconds, through a deep breath, a silent count, or an internal check, you can subdue anger before it overpowers reason. This small gap allows the rational mind to step in, evaluate the situation, and decide on the best course of action. Another aspect of this principle relates to reorienting our understanding of strength. Popular culture often portrays forceful or explosive reactions as signs of power, but Stoicism champions the conviction that true power lies in self-control. By restraining unnecessary actions, whether they are sharp words, an unkind email, or an emotional outburst, you manifest an inner authority that is far mightier than external aggression. Many conflicts in relationships, workplaces, or public spheres spiral out of control because people feed their anger or indulge their ego. Epictetus's logic exposes the weakness in that approach, emphasizing that unguarded reactions place control of your emotional state in someone else's hands. Additionally, Stoicism teaches that restraint in action extends to everyday habits. It can mean choosing to go to bed early rather than indulging in late-night distractions, selecting nutritious foods over impulsive junk choices, or dedicating regular time to reflection even if more tempting distractions beckon. Each small act of self-restraint fortifies the mind's capacity to choose wisely. You build a reservoir of self-trust that you can draw upon in more challenging situations. In sum, practicing restraint is about upholding your sovereignty in every domain, emotional, social, and even physical. By honing this discipline, you gradually eradicate regret over rash decisions. You also exhibit an inspiring equilibrium, becoming a person who, in the words of Seneca, is joyful, happy, and calm, rather than battered by the storms of fleeting desires and passions. When you do need to act decisively, your actions carry the weight of clarity and deliberation instead of the chaos of impulsiveness. Principle 9 centers on acceptance, an often misunderstood concept within Stoic philosophy. To outsiders, acceptance can appear synonymous with resignation or defeatism, but the Stoics view it quite differently. Acceptance is not about giving up, it is about aligning with reality so that you can direct your energy wisely. Epictetus famously counsels, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will." Such a statement is not about abandoning aspirations. It is about recognizing that once an event has come to pass, fretting over it cannot alter its existence. Rather than railing against uncontrollable facts, you can harness acceptance to center yourself and then take purposeful action. A practical illustration of acceptance occurs when you realize that a significant project you've invested in is failing. You might desperately wish the circumstances were different, that customers responded more enthusiastically, or that external factors did not hamper your progress. Yet the refusal to accept the present reality only prolongs your frustration. Instead, Stoic acceptance would tell you to see the situation for what it is. The project is not meeting its targets. From that vantage point, you can pivot, changing strategies or gracefully cutting losses. Acceptance here is an enabler of adaptive, solution-focused behavior. Marcus Aurelius's words, "Accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together," also highlight a social dimension of acceptance. We often resent the personalities or flaws of those around us, wishing they fit our preconceived ideals, but if we accept that each person is shaped by complex experiences and dispositions, we can better gauge how to communicate effectively or set boundaries instead of expending energy on fruitless desires for them to be different. This fosters more harmonious, productive relationships because acceptance paves the way for empathy and honest engagement rather than illusions or complaints. On a deeper level, acceptance extends to our very existence in the cosmos. Stoic philosophy asserts that nature unfolds according to rational principles, whether or not we comprehend them fully. By aligning ourselves with this flow, acknowledging that certain events lie beyond our control while others are open to our choices, we find a form of tranquility that is difficult to shake. Epictetus, for instance, might point out that anger at a rainstorm or frustration at the passage of time is pointless. If you let go of that resistance, you free mental space to adapt. Accepting that it's raining might prompt you to move an outdoor event indoors rather than lamenting the weather. Accepting the aging process might inspire you to take care of your health, relish meaningful moments, and impart wisdom to younger generations. As a daily practice, you can reinforce acceptance by noticing emotional tension whenever you're confronted with the unexpected. Instead of immediately resisting, ask yourself whether you truly have the power to change the situation at hand. If yes, shift your energy to constructive actions. If not, practice letting go of your mental struggle. This reality check can become routine, easing stress and preventing wasted effort. Over time, acceptance reveals itself as one of the most liberating Stoic tools, ushering in a sense of peace that persists even amid losses, betrayals, or natural hardships. We arrive now at Principle 10, which is perhaps the crux of Stoic teaching: living in accordance with nature. This phrase has been subject to diverse interpretations, but Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius converge on the idea that nature is both the grand cosmic order and your unique human nature, endowed with reason and moral potential. Epictetus likens it to aligning with the Tao, the universal way. Using a metaphor reminiscent of being like a newborn child, soft, flexible, yet indomitably strong in its life force. The Stoics maintain that life flows more harmoniously when we respect natural processes. We do not fight against inevitable change, we do not expect the impossible, and we nurture the rational, moral faculties that define our essence. At a fundamental level, living according to nature means acknowledging that the external world follows its own rhythms. Seasons change, economies fluctuate, people come and go, and aligning our internal attitudes to these rhythms. It also entails recognizing that as rational beings, we have the potential to guide our impulses, cultivate virtues, and shape our inner narratives. Marcus Aurelius exhorts, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together," urging us to see ourselves as integral parts of a cosmic tapestry. We do not stand above nature dictating terms, nor are we worthless cogs. Instead, we exercise our conscious participation in a vast and lawful universe. In practical terms, living according to nature encourages self-honesty about human limitations. Instead of resenting mortality, aging, or vulnerability, a Stoic uses that awareness as a spur to live well in the present, to value each encounter, and to invest in virtues that outlast fleeting pleasures. Consider how ephemeral material wealth or superficial accolades can be. From a Stoic perspective, placing your happiness in these impermanent things defies nature's transitory patterns, setting you up for inevitable disappointment. By contrast, rooting your well-being in virtue, self-awareness, and purposeful action resonates with the steady hum of existence itself. Importantly, Stoics are not advocating fatalism. A person who truly lives by nature's laws still strives for improvement of themselves, their community, and the world around them, but does so with the humility that results are never guaranteed. For Epictetus, the ideal stance is unwavering effort combined with serene acceptance. You do your best to improve conditions, help others, or master a skill, all while recognizing that external outcomes remain uncertain. This mindset fosters resilience. Should your efforts fail, you do not curse fate or yourself. You glean the lessons and continue forward, attuned to the lessons that each endeavor brings. Moreover, a life aligned with nature emphasizes simplicity and gratitude. When you strip away the clutter of incessant cravings or social comparisons, you rediscover how fulfilling simple joys can be: a nourishing meal, a heartfelt conversation, a moment of stillness in the morning sun. Seneca calls this appreciation of simplicity true happiness, explaining that those who can find contentment with less are, paradoxically, the richest of all. By quieting the noise of excessive desire, you attune yourself to the subtle gifts the universe bestows. This concluding principle wraps the prior 9 into a coherent worldview, reminding us that a genuinely good life is not measured by possessions or status, but by living wisely, justly, and in harmony with the natural order. While daily practice of these principles can be challenging, each step toward living in tune with nature yields a deeper sense of peace and alignment. You discover that you can remain unshaken by the storms of fortune because you have placed your anchor in something profound: your inherent capacity for reason, virtue, and acceptance of life's unfolding wonders. Having traversed these 10 Stoic principles, from firm purposes to living according to nature, we witness a blueprint for achieving emotional fortitude and inner balance. Notably, the purpose of these teachings is not purely intellectual, but profoundly practical. Epictetus, in particular, viewed philosophy as a means of curing the soul, akin to how medicine cures the body. Each principle, when embodied, shields your inner sanctuary from the incessant barrage of external upheavals, whether they be personal insults, unexpected failures, or shifts in societal tides. Yet the journey does not end here. Self-transformation is continuous, and the real test of Stoic wisdom lies in everyday living. It is in small moments, such as pausing before retorting to harsh words, embracing a setback as a stepping stone, or taking a few calm breaths in traffic, that these truths anchor themselves in your being. As you grow in your Stoic practice, you might find yourself becoming less reactive and more reflective, less anxious about unpredictable outcomes, and more centered in the satisfaction of living ethically. This process is akin to forging a sword, bit by bit through repeated cycles of heating and hammering. Each principle is a strike that shapes your character. We now stand at a pivot point where you can integrate these teachings more deeply. In Part 3, we'll explore the overarching conclusion: extending invitations for reflection and community engagement. Stoicism, after all, flourishes not only in solitary meditation, but through dialogue and shared insight. Many of the ancient Stoics themselves engaged in lively debates and cultivated friendships that reinforced their practice. You are invited to carry the conversation forward by leaving a comment, questioning certain points, or sharing personal anecdotes. As you do so, you contribute to the living tradition of Stoicism, ensuring that its benefits are not limited to the pages of dusty tomes, but flourish in the hearts of real people navigating modern life. Feel free to pause here and reflect. Which principle resonates most powerfully with your current challenges? Do you find the concept of mental autonomy liberating or daunting? Are you practicing acceptance of uncontrollable events, or do you still find yourself wrestling with frustration and denial? By discerning where you stand, you gain clarity on the next steps to evolve your Stoic practice. After all, philosophy is not a spectator sport. It demands active participation. As you prepare to move into Part 3, know that each principle is a seed, With the right attention, these seeds can blossom into genuine resilience, transforming not only how you handle adversity, but how you experience the beauty of life as well. As we enter the final segment of our exploration of Epictetus's teachings and the 10 Stoic principles, it is helpful to revisit the philosophical bedrock we have built thus far. At its core, Stoicism revolves around two intersecting ideas: the distinction between what lies within our power, our mind, judgments, and decisions, and what lies beyond it, other people's actions, random events, the ebb and flow of nature. From this vantage point grows a profound sense of autonomy. You may not be able to orchestrate the happenings of the world, but you can always orchestrate your interpretation of and response to them. This sense of autonomy nurtures the capacity for unwavering calm. A calm that is not born of apathy, but from the assurance that you remain the final arbiter of your emotional and mental state. Far from making Stoics unfeeling, it frees them to practice compassion and engage with life's joys and sorrows without fear of being shattered by disappointment or adversity. Each of the principles we have addressed strengthens that autonomy, whether it is the notion of forming firm purposes, refusing to hand your mind over to strangers, or maintaining your dignity in the face of insults. The underlying message remains: you own your mind. Now is a good juncture to evaluate your personal application of these ideas. Philosophical concepts, no matter how eloquent or time-tested, remain inert until activated by consistent practice. Perhaps you are finding success with certain principles, like anticipating obstacles or accepting situations beyond your control, but still grapple with the fear of public perception or the sting of harsh criticism. That tension is perfectly normal, as we are all in the process of learning. Epictetus would likely commend any earnest effort to apply these insights, reminding us that the path to mastery is paved with incremental progress. Moreover, it can be enlightening to note how these Stoic tools might enhance other areas of life. For instance, if you have a mindfulness or meditation routine, you may seamlessly incorporate Stoic reflection into those moments of stillness. Imagine dedicating the last 5 minutes of each meditation session to reviewing your day, analyzing whether you succumbed to frustration or maintained your emotional sovereignty. This synergy between Stoicism and contemporary practices like mindfulness or cognitive behavioral techniques underscores the adaptability of Epictetus's ideas. Though centuries old, they mesh well with modern psychological approaches. Finally, keep in mind that self-assessment is less about judgment and more about honest discernment. When you identify patterns, maybe chronic worry, impulsive outbursts, or an attachment to outside validation, you can begin to unravel them gently, substituting them with new habits. In the next paragraphs, we will reflect on how these principles unify into an overarching perspective, offering guidance on how to sustain and deepen your Stoic practice in the long haul. Should you stumble on the way, remember that each perceived setback is also a scenario for applying Stoic resilience, reminding you to see challenges as stepping stones for growth rather than immovable barriers. One of the most appealing features of Stoicism, and particularly Epictetus's brand of it, is its direct applicability to everyday life. Stoicism is less about abstract metaphysics and more about cultivating equanimity amidst real-world pressures. In the daily hustle, be it juggling familial responsibilities, work deadlines, financial planning, or maintaining relationships, the mental posture taught by Epictetus offers a grounding force. By methodically identifying what is and is not under your control, you free up mental bandwidth. Energy that once went into worrying or fretting over impossible tasks is instead redirected into constructive action and self-refinement. Consider how this dynamic may play out in a typical day. You wake up and, in the Stoic spirit, you briefly contemplate the possibility that the day may bring unforeseen challenges. heavy traffic, a quarrel with a loved one, technological breakdowns, or a missed opportunity. By doing so, you do not gloomily dwell on these obstacles, but you steel your mindset against panic or frustration should they arise. When traffic indeed appears to be horrendous, you respond with a calm acceptance, arriving late without internal turmoil. You recognize that no amount of anger can dissipate the congestion on the road. Instead, you might use that extra time to enjoy an audio course, reflect on your priorities, or practice deep breathing. Such seemingly small shifts in perspective can ripple throughout your day, greatly reducing stress. Epictetus would frame this as virtue in action, because virtue is not limited to grand moral deeds, but extends to the minute details of how you govern your reactions. This perspective also transforms how you interact with others. A coworker's bad mood no longer automatically spoils your own. A friend's harsh or critical tone might be met with patience and understanding rather than a reactive counterattack. Over time, you become a pillar of calm in various social circles, which can have a transformative effect not only on your own emotional health, but on group dynamics. People may trust you more, seeing that you remain level-headed and respectful under stress. Importantly, Stoicism does not require you to adopt an attitude of emotional suppression or to withdraw from life's richness. Marcus Aurelius, who governed a sprawling empire while facing warfare and personal loss, wrote of the joy he found in simple acts, like studying nature or cherishing loyal friendships. Stoics merely strive to prevent their emotional engagement from tipping into chaos, rather than eliminating feeling altogether. As you apply this approach, you might find that you become more keenly aware of life's subtler pleasures. When not consumed by worry or emotional storms, you can savor the present moment, like the warmth of the sun on your face, the taste of a home-cooked meal, or the quiet contentment of reading a well-crafted book. In this manner, Stoicism becomes an art of living that seamlessly complements any lifestyle or profession. Whether you are an artist, engineer, teacher, parent, or student, the steady discipline of focusing on your thoughts and your moral character remains relevant. It is that universality, perhaps, that has kept Stoicism alive across the millennia, continually reinterpreted to suit the evolving fabric of civilization. Each generation rediscovers Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, finding their words startlingly contemporary, like old friends who remind you that you possess a deep well of inner strength, even when the world around you appears to be in disarray. Although Stoicism often emphasizes personal responsibility, it also acknowledges the social dimension of human life. We are not hermits existing in a vacuum. We exist in families, friendships, workplaces, and broader communities. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca all recognize that we fulfill part of our duty by contributing to society and by fostering bonds that elevate mutual understanding and virtue. This aspect, though understated in some interpretations, underscores that Stoic teachings flourish in communal settings where people can discuss, challenge, and reinforce each other's growth. Think about the potential synergy when a group of people commits to living by Stoic principles. In a workplace, for instance, colleagues who practice emotional restraint, who proactively anticipate setbacks, and who strive to respond rather than react, can build a culture of respect and innovation. Meetings become less about ego posturing and more about constructive problem-solving. A family that values acceptance over blame can navigate conflicts with understanding, creating a supportive home environment where each member grows in self-awareness. In friendships, individuals who follow Stoicism refrain from gossip and backbiting, focusing instead on mutual betterment and honest dialogue. Ancient Stoic schools, akin to modern discussion groups or online communities, served as hubs for teaching, debate, and companionship in the philosophical pursuit. Today, Digital platforms allow Stoic practitioners worldwide to share insights and hold each other accountable to daily practices. Journaling, reflection, or analyzing emotional triggers. Epictetus's spirit comes alive in these virtual gatherings when someone confesses a lapse in self-control and others offer empathetic but firm guidance rooted in Stoic wisdom. This synergy can accelerate personal growth as you learn from others' experiences and glean fresh angles on classical teachings. Additionally, communal reflection can deepen your understanding of any principle. For example, if you struggle with the concept of acceptance, discussing real scenarios with friends or a mentor can clarify how to find the line between accepting unchangeable situations and taking initiative when change is possible. Hearing how different personalities interpret and apply the same principle can spark new insights. The friction of multiple viewpoints refines your grasp of Stoic concepts, much like iron sharpening iron. Epictetus likely recognized the potency of social feedback when he urged his students to engage in dialogue, question assumptions, and put theory into practice beyond the lecture halls. Yet, community does not mean losing one's sense of self. On the contrary, Stoics argue that a well-integrated community consists of individuals who are each committed to self-improvement and moral integrity. A Stoic friend is not an enabler who soothes your ego, but a truth-teller who helps you see where your reactions deviate from reason. This synergy fosters a culture of genuine support, one that values sincerity, growth, and the shared pursuit of living in harmony with nature's It may be one of the reasons that for centuries Stoic groups have endured, bridging people of diverse backgrounds united by a common goal: to exist in the world more consciously, more calmly, and with a deeper sense of shared humanity. Though Stoicism offers timeless solutions, it is not without challenges in the modern era. The relentless pace of social media, the volatile political climate, the temptations of consumer culture, and the anxieties fueled by the 24-hour news cycle can feel overwhelming. We might assume that ancient Stoic teachings do not address these specifics, yet from a Stoic standpoint, the essence of these modern triggers is familiar. External events that lie outside our direct control and elicit strong emotional responses. In many respects, the underlying dynamic remains the same as it was 2,000 years ago. One stumbling block in contemporary life is the habitual overstimulation of the mind. Technology immerses us in a perpetual stream of updates, pings, and notifications, leaving precious little time for introspection. Epictetus would likely admonish us to carve out daily intervals of silence to recenter. Even 5 minutes of mindful stillness away from devices can help restore a sense of perspective. During such breaks, you might reflect on whether your emotional states have been shaped by online chatter or by a measured appraisal of reality. This brief daily introspection can serve as an anchor, ensuring you remain the active driver of your life's direction rather than a passenger pulled along by every digital wave. Another challenge is the pressure to present a curated self-image. Platforms like Instagram or LinkedIn fuel comparisons, making it tempting to chase external validation. Stoicism teaches that these comparisons are illusions because others' external successes or curated highlights do not necessarily equate to genuine internal contentment. As you scroll through a feed filled with impeccable achievements, you can remind yourself that you control your response. Are you going to envy, or are you going to refocus on your own virtuous path? Marcus Aurelius might ask, "What use is it to me if others are praised? I have my own pursuit of the good." Moreover, the fear of public opinion persists strongly in our connected world. A critical comment or a social media argument can spiral into a day-ruining event if we let it. Stoic practice would be to carefully assess whether that comment impacts your pursuit of virtue or if it's merely a superficial jab unworthy of emotional investment. Seneca's logic, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," applies perfectly here. By rationally dissecting the situation, you might see that the negative remark has no real bearing on your character or capabilities. Such an approach can defuse the emotional reaction and protect your inner tranquility. The final major challenge is the modern culture's prioritization of instant gratification. Many consumer technologies thrive on feeding impulsivity. Buy now, pay later, binge watch the entire season, swipe for a quick match. Stoicism urges the opposite, measured restraint and consideration of long-term well-being. This can feel like swimming upstream, yet the reward is greater self-command. By pausing before making a purchase or indulging in impulse, you align with Epictetus's emphasis on conscious choice. Over time, your willpower grows, and you build a life not driven by fleeting impulses, but by thoughtful purpose. Though modern life has complexities unique to its era, the fundamental Stoic challenge remains consistent: to discern what is truly within your power, to discipline your mind in responding to external stimuli, and to remain aligned with virtue. As you stand at the crossroads of ancient wisdom and contemporary living, you bring the best of both worlds together, forging a personal philosophy robust enough to handle the intense pace and connectedness of the 21st century. Bringing the 10 principles into a coherent whole, we observe a framework for holistic growth. Firm purposes. Shape your life around unwavering goals and values, rather than drifting with every whim or external push. Guard your mind. Just as you would protect your body from harm, do not allow strangers, be they individuals, impulses, or mass opinion, to hijack your thoughts. Handling ill speech. Maintain a steady sense of self amid gossip or slander, recognizing that it is your interpretation, not the words themselves, that hold power. Insult and offense. Develop the reflex to reframe insults, understanding that emotional wounds grow from your consent, not from the insult alone. Fear and dishonor. Recognize fear as a product of your projections, and remember that true honor rests within moral choice, not public applause. Anticipating obstacles. Mentally prepare for adversity, not out of pessimism, but to sharpen your ability to adapt without panic. No one can hurt you. Embrace the belief that external harm cannot pierce your core unless you open the gateway through your interpretation. Restraint in action. Master your impulses to avoid regretful words or deeds, exhibiting poise and inner authority. The power of acceptance. Align with reality as it is, focusing energy on constructive responses instead of unproductive resistance. Living according to nature, harmonize with the flow of existence, cosmic, societal, and personal, by embracing rationality, virtue, and humility. When fully internalized, these 10 principles complement each other, forming a united philosophical stance. By clarifying what you can and cannot control, you reduce anxiety. By restraining impulsive reactions, you handle unexpected events with calm deliberation. By accepting reality's natural ebb and flow, you avoid the suffering of clinging to what must inevitably change. Finally, by staying anchored in firm purposes and self-awareness, you manifest the full dignity of being a rational, moral agent. Yet this synergy does not happen overnight. It requires dedicated practice, journaling to track progress, meditating on these principles, pausing before reacting, and possibly joining study groups or online forums. Each principle offers a different facet of the path to mental freedom, but together they construct a fortress of resilience that endures beyond immediate tests. The payoff is substantial. Relationships become richer, stress levels diminish, and an underlying sense of contentment arises. You find that life's stumbles no longer herald despair. Instead, they become stepping stones toward ever deeper wisdom. Epictetus might remind you at this stage that philosophy is not a mere intellectual exercise but a lived discipline, tested in the mundane. So as you read or hear each principle, reflect, where am I applying this now? Where am I falling short? That introspection is a key ingredient in the transformation from theoretical knowledge to the authentic Stoic life. Each small improvement, each insult you let pass without meltdown, each fear you diffuse with rational clarity, is a sign that these principles are blossoming within you. No philosophical journey is complete without dialogue. Epictetus himself taught in public spaces, engaging in Socratic-style questioning to draw out hidden assumptions and to press his students toward deeper insights. In the same spirit, you are warmly invited to share questions, reflections, or personal stories about how you have implemented these Stoic tenets. Each person's experience can illuminate aspects of Stoicism that might remain unseen in solitary study. For instance, you might reveal a personal struggle with Principle 3 if someone speaks ill of you, recounting a recent scenario where you felt devastated by online criticism. Explaining how you slowly recognized your power to reinterpret those criticisms could encourage another reader to handle their own situation with more composure. Similarly, if you have devised a practical method such as journaling each morning about the day's potential pitfalls, Principle 6 on anticipating obstacles, others may be inspired to adopt a similar habit. Comments can also explore tensions. Perhaps you wonder if unconditional acceptance, Principle 9, leads to passivity, or if there is a balancing act between acceptance and proactively seeking change. Engaging in a thoughtful exchange about these dilemmas can refine everyone's understanding. Even ancient Stoics debated fine points of theory and application, so do not shy away from constructive questioning. Epictetus would almost certainly applaud your curiosity, as it indicates you are grappling with real-world implications rather than passively absorbing dogma. Hearing success stories is equally potent. When a mother describes how she used Stoic restraint to navigate a tumultuous morning routine with her children, or a student recounts harnessing Stoic anticipation before a nerve-wracking exam, these real-life accounts turn abstract principles into relatable guidance. In those moments, Stoicism steps off the grand historical stage of philosophical treatises and enters the realm of practical living, affirming its parentage by speaking up, whether to share, question, or encourage. You become part of a living philosophical community. Each voice adds to the collective tapestry of wisdom, ensuring that Epictetus's teachings remain active and evolving. As modern Stoics, you can continue the tradition of turning adversity into growth, turning ephemeral approval into meaningful self-awareness, and turning the unstoppable tides of fate into opportunities for virtue. That ongoing exchange, bridging centuries, transforms a centuries-old doctrine into a vibrant, living practice. We close this extended treatise on Epictetus's 10 Stoic principles with a clear call to action. Embody these lessons. The ultimate measure of success in Stoic practice is not how well you can recite quotes, but how gracefully you handle life's unpredictabilities, how calmly you navigate personal and social turbulence. As you move forward, remember that each principle acts like a lantern on the path of wisdom. Rely on it when darkness descends, and you may avoid stumbling or losing your way. Over time, living by these principles becomes second nature. If you find that you occasionally revert to old habits, snapping at a loved one, worrying over trifles, or yearning for unattainable perfection, do not despair. See it as another chance to apply Principle 5, facing fear and dishonor, or Principle 9, the power of acceptance. Rather, it aims for consistent improvement, guided by reason and anchored in moral clarity. Each slip offers a valuable lesson in humility, patience, and self-compassion. Many practitioners integrate these teachings into a broader routine of self-care, Some keep a Stoic journal, jotting down daily reflections on triumphs and shortfalls. Others recite brief affirmations each morning, reminding themselves of their ability to choose responses. Certain people read a passage from Epictetus's Discourses or Marcus Aurelius's Meditations to start or end the day in a reflective frame of mind. Choose whatever technique resonates with you, ensuring that these timeless truths remain in easy reach when challenges surface. Finally, stay connected. As mentioned, Stoic ideas flourish when shared. If you appreciated this exploration, consider sharing it with friends, colleagues, or family members who might also glean value. Engage in the comments below, asking questions, offering suggestions, or recounting your experiences. And if you are inspired to deepen your practice, delve into the original works of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, or Seneca. Their writings hold countless nuanced gems for anyone committed to living wisely and bravely. In parting, recall the heartbeat of Stoicism. You possess an inviolable inner realm, your reasoned choice. While storms may rage outside, that internal citadel can remain calm, illuminated by virtue, and ultimately free. May your Stoic journey continue to expand that inner horizon, bringing you unshakable peace, clarity of purpose, and the resilience to face life's storms with confidence and grace. We've journeyed through storms and sunshine, exploring Stoicism's transformative power, not just as philosophy, but as a blueprint for an extraordinary life. Personally, these ancient principles have guided me like a trusted mentor, helping me navigate life's twists and turns with grace, courage, and purpose. Now it's your turn to embrace this wisdom, rewriting your own story into one filled with strength, clarity, and deep inner peace. But every great story needs dialogue, so now it's your moment to shine. Drop a comment below, share your personal battles, victories, or even questions. Let's build a powerful conversation around growth, resilience, and the timeless pursuit of happiness. Together, we're creating a thriving community united by wisdom, courage, and unstoppable authenticity. Subscribe to join us in scripting a brighter, fearless future, one Stoic principle at a time.